An alternative approach to debugging is logging. So the logging, when you use logger, then you create log messages that are saved to your computer. The logging provides you with some advantages, and it depends, of course, on the stage on which you are in developing your program. So if you are developing your program, then maybe debugging is the better way that you want to use to check the state of your program on different ways. When you're using logging, you are saving log messages about the execution of your program, and this option you can use not only during the debugging, not only during the developing of your code, but also during the deployment. And this is an advantage. So when you're using logging, you can configure the log messages according to different levels. So you are the one who is defining how detailed your log messages should be. So let us have a look on an example. I will just open it. You will find this logging example in your Moodle. So this is an example how you are using logging. The first, you're creating a logger instance. And this instance here, it should be static and final. It should be static since this logger will be accessed by all instances of your class, so by all objects, and that's why it should be static. And you don't want this logger to be changed. That's why you set it to final. And you give it a name. In this case, it's logger. You are using capital letters since this is final variable. And you are creating this instance with this line of code. Logging here is the same as the name of your class. Next, you are creating special method here that is called final handler. You are just creating it. You don't initialize it yet. And you will initialize it in this special method here. Final handler, new file handler. And now what this file handler does? This file handler saves the log messages to some place, let us say to some folder on your computer as the program runs. And here you are defining the path to where your log messages should be saved. And here's, for example, now they will be saved in our folder src, exercise 5 exceptions, and here you are writing the name of the file that should have your log messages, and you're putting here dot and the extension log. You're putting this instantiation into try and catch block, and you would like to catch two types of exceptions: security exception and input-output exception. And if they are caught, they are you print stack trace to the console. On the next stage, you are setting the formatter and level for handler. So with this line of code, you are setting here with the method setFormatter, you are setting formatter. We use now just simple one, and you are setting level final. So there are totally 8 levels of 8 levels for our logs. So let us write them briefly here. Log levels. The first one is off. And this is when there is no logging at all. The next level is finest, and this is very detailed one. So this very detailed. In this case, when you're using this finest level, you will receive a lot of messages, and this is used usually for development phase because you do want those messages. However, during the deployment, you would not like to use this finest level since you will receive a lot of messages that will reduce the speed of your program execution. And that's why we will just write here inside for development and testing phase. The next two levels are finer and fine. Here you have just some less detailed logs. The next one is info, and this is just some general information. Next one are warning levels, warning level, and here with this level you'll receive messages, log messages that indicate some problems. And the last one is severe, that indicates points to failures. So now we have chosen here the final level, and we are now attaching the handler to the logger with this line of code, and we are setting the level of logger now to the finer as well. You could set both of them to different levels. And this is the code where you were defining this part here. You were defining your logger, and that's all. So now you can use it. So here you see the program that is already familiar to you about our retirement fund that we have just used in our debugging part. So first what we do, we are setting up the logger, and for this you are using you're calling the method, in our case logit, that we where is it here, our special method. So we are just calling this special method from our class logging. And now you are writing your code, and then when you're checking, then you can add some additional parts of code where you could check if the monthly pension is less than 100. Then you would like to create here the log entry severe, that is indicating the problem with calculation. And in this case, if it is if monthly pension is less than 100, then you would receive the message monthly pension is too low. And then you would like to print some additional messages according to the level. So you are defining the content of those messages by yourself. So I have defined here finest detailed message according to the name of those levels. And then in your method, you also would like to log the beginning of the method, in this the state of your program when the method, before the method execution. And for this case you are using the method entering. So you see here entering a log method entry. You would like also to check the state of your program after exiting the method, and in this case you are using the exiting, and here at the end you are writing this using this method exiting. And you are you can also use log method to create a custom method. And that's also when we will execute this code, we will see a lot of messages, and these messages were generated by our logger instance. And you see everything that we have defined in our logger code. So that's all. Our homework for this part of the exercise for handling exceptions and debugging, as usually, please copy all the codes that you have seen in your lecture slides to Eclipse and try to run them. In our exercise, when you open the Moodle, of course, you have all codes there. However, I advise you to type those codes by yourself, since you have to be able to write those codes by yourself too. The logging codes that you have seen now, you have to understand how to do it. However, it is not necessary to type it by yourself, but you have to understand how to create a logger instance, how to create handler, and so on. So you will also receive quizzes, some interesting ones, and programming tasks that you will find in the Moodle. Thank you for your attention and see you next time. Bye.